Hello there, I'm another Magento dev. Sorry for being late. 5 minutes late there. Right, today I'm going to keep the chatter down to a minimum. I'm just going to write code for about an hour. See where I get to with this. So it's picking up where I left off on a video that I just put on the channel this morning. I uploaded it earlier on with regards to Vue.js, getting it working as a front end theming tool or front end theming workflow, and I'm just gonna work on it for an hour. I'm just gonna work on it. I've not really planned what I'm gonna do specifically and what I'm gonna tell you or teach or whatever it is. I'm just gonna work on it and see how far I can get. But it's following on a bit from this morning, a bit from last week. So last week we created a. I created a content delivery, headless content delivery API in WordPress. I've got a lot of content to pull through, which I'm going to bring through to my own page at least, and I'm just going to start from here. So last week I started connecting to APIs. I connected to the Magento REST API and this WordPress API, and I'm just going to start from scratch basically. So start from this, which I've just added to the chat, the link to the GitHub. I'll put it in the description of the video as well for the start of it. Basically the boilerplate where you get started. And basically what I've done is I've moved it out of a theme because I think it sits better in a module. So I've popped it in this module here, and it essentially, as you can see, is being output here to the page. Yeah, and I'm just going to go for it. So what I want to do is I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm also going to show you replacing the header globally as well. So there's a few things. I'll probably see how far we can get in an hour. Right, so it's deploying now to here. And I'll just make sure that we're all up and running with regards to dev tools and that. So yeah, here's my app. At the minute I'm just exporting the page identifier there. So I am going to start by, because the idea of this is that it is performant, that it's super fast, and as I've mentioned many a time, the only way you can make Magento super fast, proper super fast, is to get rid of Magento. But I want to do it only in certain areas. Right, and so at the moment I've got no components, I've got no anything in here whatsoever. Right, so let's make a start. So I'm gonna, as I say, start with the app. Start with the app, which is the bit here, and then I'll move on to the header, I think. So with regards to the app, where we're going to start. So within here, this is all my demo code, so I can kind of get rid of all this. This was all my boilerplate. I'm going to get rid of all this. We'll see if it's then updating the front end here. Might not. Ah, no, I haven't put auto reload on, have I? Let's get auto reload on. Okay, we're also going to be doing some stuff. It just reminded me. We're also going to be looking at the Magento GraphQL API as well, and we're going to get some products from it because it's much better than the REST API. Right, that seems to be all up and running, and I'm going to show you a couple of tips and tricks on how to use that. Right, and so I have got one I made earlier to help me out to sort of speed things up. So in terms of the component builder, and in fact in terms of speeding things up, I did do this last week. I did this last week in my live stream, so I'm not cheating. All I've done is I wanted to put up on GitHub an absolute boilerplate, what anyone can install and do whatever they want with. This is where I'm going to sort of kick into my customizations for my theme here. Right, and so I'm going to first of all, for this page, I'm going to connect to my WordPress API. So I'm going to write some integration code to do that. So I'm going to get in all of my blocks that I've pre-built. in a minute, and I'm gonna first of all create my connections and get the web and get the API. We're gonna do it in stages. So I'll get the API working first, and I need a return. So I need a data return. As I say, I'm not going to waffle on too much today. I'm just going to write some code. I don't know whether I can go any bigger with this. No, I'm not going to go any bigger. You'll just have to watch it in HD. The reason being, I can't work in it when it's bigger. It does my head in. I'm just going to make this a little bit more visible on my screen for everyone, so we can see it updating and that. So I'm just going to squish it to mobile version for now, just so I can see it updating and get some visual feedback off that. Okay, I'm going to be getting the page back from the API eventually, and this is the WordPress page that I'm going to be getting back. So within this I need, well, I'm going to need a method, which I'll come back to, which I did touch on last week. We'll go over it again, and I'm going to need a created function, an async one, because I'm going to an API and I'm getting a promise and I'm waiting for that to respond, and then I'm going to load data to the page. Okay, right, whilst I've got this going, I'm just going to see if that'll update. It's probably going to come up with an error because I'm not, yeah, this doesn't exist yet. So I'm just going to add this in. I did this last week. So this is what's going to grab my component from a WordPress API, and it's going to make it camel case for me to be able to add it in, you know, each component in components, and it's going to complain about it because also there's no WP API either. So I'm going to add that now. So this would be like an integration script, if you like, just a JavaScript file. I'm going to copy it from this other project and I'm going to paste it into my Vue app. Okay, now I'm getting build successful. So all this is doing, it's really simple. Look, it's going to my WordPress API endpoint and it's grabbing by page slug the actual page, the data from this page. So everything. Let's just have a quick look at the console. Yeah, I'm not getting anything back yet because I'm not calling it correctly in my file. I think I'm going to get some cause policy issues actually overall here, so I will sort that out in a second. And I'll show you what to do with that for the time being. So what I'm going to do is, and I did this in the last tutorial and in the live stream last week, is I'm actually passing data from my app.html here, and I'm passing the page identifier, and I'm going to pick that page identifier up here, and I'm going to grab the data ID from it, and then I'm going to pass it into a variable called page, and then I'm going to pass page into this page, which is this guy here. And I can console log it as well if I want to at this point, but I'm not going to right now. I'm just going to let that build out. So that's going to go to my API and it's going to get me this, right? So even though I'm getting cause errors and what have you, I'm still getting the data I need back from the API. So you can see all of the ACF fields. I've already as I said, populated it with a slider, product, a text block, a single image, and an image grid. What I've found from working on this is that the page speed scores are amazing. First of all, absolutely brilliant. I'm up in the high 90s on mobile, depending on the content that's in there, and on desktop, well, it's lightning quick. So it's well worth doing this extra dev to be able to make those gains. You're not going to be able to make those gains, particularly on mobile, unless you chuck Magento right out of the bath, the baby out. So Magento would be the baby, No, would Magento be the bath water? You got to chuck some out the bath. You got to basically empty the bath and fill it up with the good stuff, which is this code here. Right, so them cause errors are gonna do my head in. So what I'm gonna do is, just for the purposes of this, and this is something that you can do locally, if you want, is I'm gonna switch off Magento cause. Obviously, don't do this in your live environment. CSP, I think it's called. Cool. And it's just going to stop those errors. In your live environment, you can write a module whitelisting the URLs that you need to be whitelist. I'm going to run whitelisting the URLs that you need to be whitelisted, which is a fairly easy thing to do. You could just search for it, how to do it. Just gonna run the big for whilst I'm setting up some other stuff. So this is just gonna switch off that module for me so we don't get that annoying error. But as I say, we're gonna start connecting it to, where are we? Right, so we're getting the page, we're passing that page slug into here, we're getting that back because it's called home, this page. The WordPress page is called home. I'm getting the data back. Brilliant, nice and simple as it goes. So at this point, we are looking at bringing in this information into the into our app view, but then we want to build components here to then display our different components from our component builder. So we're going to need a slider, we're going to need a single image, we're going to need product, all that type of stuff. So we're going to try and build them out in a second as best we can, and we are going to also start removing bits of Magento that we don't want. So particularly on the CMS pages, we don't want certain parts of Magento. So what we're going to do there, so we've got this at the minute, which is just outputting my app to the main container, which isn't quite drastic enough. I mean, obviously you can just go for this if you want to work in Vue and build a nice page builder and all that type of stuff, and your goal isn't in the end massive gains in performance. You're going to gain a bit in performance, don't get me wrong, but massive gains in performance, and you just want this workflow, mount it here, main content. This is the boilerplate code that you get. What I'm going to do for the purposes of this video is a bit more drastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start systematically removing crap. So and I'm going to do it in bugbear order. Bugbear number 1, Magento's styles sheets. These are so ill optimized that it beggars belief. Like, the amount of render blocking that you get from these 3 files, or these 2 files, L and M, is incredible. I don't know why I've got that in there. I think that might be because I customised. I'll leave it in there, but it's not, because usually that's what your customised one is. I'm also going to remove just JavaScript in general. So require JS is going. I'm not going to use it because all the JS I need is going to be deployed in our script, in our main script. It's going to be minified and it's going to be optimized. Yeah, and that for now is probably going to be all I'm going to get rid of. I don't know why I've put that there. It's a bit messy in it. Let's just sort this out. Okay. Save that. And then I'm literally going to root out Magento. And how do you do that? Well, you can actually remove it from the root there, look. Remove it from the root. And I'm just going to change this to app.wrapper, and that's because I'm going to remove the root of Magento and then put back a container. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to copy this one. I'm going to put back a container, my own container. I have to put back a container really to contain my block. So I want an app container just in case I need to put anything else outside of, Vue. I want a container. But essentially all that's going to do is hold on to my block, which is my app, which is the guy that, my entry point for the Vue app. Okay, and I'm also now passing the CMS page which is the block, and any information I can get from this, which I'm going to come into in a minute, into my block here for me to use in my app. Let's just give this a refresh because I've done a quick build on it and see if it's all working. Right, okay, so I've removed Magento, as you can see. So let's have a look at what that actually means. So I've got my app container here. You can actually see my app, but it's having trouble at the minute because all of its components aren't built yet. But as you can see, other than this like live reload script, look at the amount of stuff we've got now compared to what it was. Now, that if you know Magento, look at a Magento. This is packed. This is absolutely packed out with scripts, CSS files, gubbins that you don't need. We've completely pruned it, and obviously we've created a problem for ourselves. We don't have our own page, but we can rectify that problem quite succinctly, really, by comparison. And if you want these gains, it's going to be worth doing. So essentially, there we go. That's our sort of this is our starting point. Let's start from this point. Let's work our way into it now. So the next thing we're going to do, I'll just close this one, is we're going to start building out some components. Now, Tailwind is installed on this, so I can use Tailwind for these components. Just be aware that if you're trying to merge Tailwind with, and you haven't removed Magento's CSS, you're going to get a few conflicts, mainly around font sizing and stuff like that. So you might have to have some like base SAS in your theme that kind of resets things, normalizes things, and then deploy Tailwind over the top. It depends how much Tailwind you're keeping versus, depends how much default Magento you're keeping versus Tailwind. So, you can gauge that. You can gauge that yourself. Apologies. Let me just check something. Okay, right. Okay, next thing. So we're going to start building out our components. And we're going to start with, we'll start at the top here, we'll start with the slider. So we've got the root entry point for our application that we're going to mount to the page here is app, like I've just shown you. So I'm going to start adding my components and bringing them through to app, essentially. So we're going to have the first one is going to be called slider view. And we can add this because, as we've seen, what's been outputted to the page is slider there, but what's expected in my app is like a camel case version of the word slider, which is essentially that. And I'm going to import that. And then path to the file. Okay, and then I also need to specify that component here. Yeah, I'm getting an error now, which means that it's in because I'm getting an error because I ain't got a template file in here. Okay, so that's how I would add a component. And a component called slider. Now I've pre-written the slider code because it's a bit complicated and a bit long-winded, but if I bring it through now from this one, yeah, this is what it looks like. And I've pre-installed Swiper as well. And the slider uses Swiper. So I'm going to paste this in and then I'm going to just briefly walk you through it. So it's a bit advanced on what we did in last week's, a bit of an advancement on what we did in last week's live stream. Let's see if it works. It's not working. I think the other things are actually breaking it. The fact that I've got, right, there's something else going on, which I'm just going to get to the bottom of. Let's have a look at Vue tools, see if these shed any light on the situation. So this is getting my slides. Might have to start a little bit. Wonder. I think I might need to just clear some static content. See if I get it to come through. Or it might be that my other. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in all of my components, because I think one missing will break it. So best laid plans here. I'm just going to bring all of these things in. And then I'll just talk through them. Okay. So these are all the components that the builder expects. I'm also just going to clear out, I'm in Luma theme, aren't I? My statically generated version. There we go, it's starting to come through. Okay. Right, so this is my slider essentially, that's coming through here. You can see I'm starting to get the document, sorry, the content from my slider. Not getting any console errors. Definitely got Swiper installed, haven't I? Yeah, so Swiper's working, right, and I'm up and running. Great, that's a good start. That's a good start. Right, and just make sure that everything is deploying properly. Just make a change so it runs mix, and then I'll just double check. So when you first sort of kick off with this process, there we go. Should have this going. When you first kick off with this process, it just needs a bit of a kick. Okay. Okay, the next thing would be to I'm not bringing everything through to app yet, am I? So I'm bringing the slider through. So I'll add these sort of one by one, so we can see them manifest themselves. So the next thing that I'm going to add, and I think if we're just checking here, so we've got slider first, it's products. So it's a list of products from Magento. Okay, and that is, yeah, products. So if I import products from components, products.vue, and then I've got to specify it in here, saved it too soon. Products. It's going to rebuild itself. Yeah. Because I saved it, it's kicked off. Products.vue. Right, so within products, so this is quite a useful one to go to next, is my graph API file, but it isn't there. That's the problem. So I'm going to add that, and I'm going to walk you through it. So this is a beauty. This is basically how we go back to Magento for product data without actually getting it from Magento's core. We're going to go to the API for it. we're going to go to the GraphQL API. So the way this works, or the best way to work with this, is to have something like Altair here, which is a GraphQL sort of query piece of software, if you like, in the browser. It's free, it's just a browser extension, but basically you can test any GraphQL endpoint here and see what you get back. And as you can see here, I'm testing the Magento GraphQL products API with a filter of SKU, which is handy because in my page builder I'm passing the SKU from here, and I'm then going to pick it up at the component end via the API, via the product API. So I'm going to create a file called GraphQL, and I'm going to put it in my app, similar to my WordPress API connector. So I've got two connectors now. I've got my GraphQL one. So what am I getting in here? And this is the beauty of GraphQL, and it's just so good to work with. Is essentially all I'm doing is I'm passing a list of SKUs, right? So the hard work is being done. Let's remove the console log. The hard work is really being done in here. Look, I'm getting a list of SKUs from the product data, which is sent by WordPress. I'm then looping around them SKUs and flattening it essentially into a list, a comma separated list, and then I'm passing that into this function here, which lives here in the Graph API. And in here, the good thing about this particular query is that it can take one SKU or many SKUs. So it's really handy that I can go to it for one product, or I can go to it for many. So I can use the same one for to go get any product really, and that's what I'm doing. So if I come back into here, you'll see it's looking for featured products, and I think I might have a couple more. It's going to the wrong API, it's going to another test one, so I just change this to what was it, Magento 245.test. Yeah. Obviously you can go to any Magento for it. And this is now bringing back some products. Look, right then. So one of the questions that you're probably going to ask is, where's the other images, right? Well, I've written something extra in here to go towards page speed, and this illustrates it quite well. I've written part of it. So basically, we're going and getting all the information, and there's a bit of it's a bug essentially, I think, in the GraphQL API Magento that you need to be aware of. And the problem is that obviously in Magento you can go and get a number of different images. You can have the thumbnail, look, it'll recognise that you want the thumbnail. Also you've got like your media gallery, you can get URLs, you can get anything from in terms of images. And you see this image here, even though it's meant to be the small image, and now I don't know if there's a way around this, but it appears to be getting it from the wrong cache folder, because it isn't getting the small image, look. It's getting the big one, which is a bit annoying because the whole point of this is making your pages quick. You don't want to be showing images that are too big for the container. So what I've done is I've tried to get around that a little bit by rendering and looking for a WebP version of this image. And the reason I can do that in this install, or at least half do it, it's one of the reasons why for some reason not all the images are showing as WebPs. I've installed, I'll show you, I've talked about it on the channel before, I've installed the Aereo extension for WebP. Now 0.12.4 is the latest one, right? That's 0.12.2. 0.12.4 didn't work at all. It just didn't work on this new version of Magento, and I don't know why. I've got production sites out there now with it on, but it wasn't working locally for me, and I don't know whether it's something to do with the way I've installed the sample data or some quirk of my system. So I don't want to tell you it's broke, but I couldn't get it working, and I couldn't get it to show, you know, the different source sets on the category page. It wasn't working. And the other thing that wasn't working on there is it wasn't generating in media the WebP versions. Hang on, this one might have. it wasn't generating the WebP versions with the default settings. It was only generating WebP versions of the... It's generated them now. Let's have a look. So it hadn't generated them ones, but it's generated these ones. Like, it's only generating some and not all, which is why we're not getting all of the images there. But on another install, it generated them all. So what I'm just going to do is, whilst I'm working on these other bits, is I'm going to run the indexer. I'm going to run the cron. And I'm going to run index. I'm going to run the cron because it should run it and generate the images on the cron. Or I'm going to delete the cache folders and get them to regenerate themselves on the fly, and that might rectify the situation. So I'm just going to do that. Chances are it's going to knock all the images. But essentially, actually, before I do this, there's an example. Look. So when it's working properly, the Aero extension will generate in the same folder a WebP version. So in our JavaScript app, we can look for that. We can manage that. So if I look at the product, what's happening is I'm going and getting, actually it'll be an image. There we go. So I've got a component called image within the product, and I'm getting it as a background image, which I have to say is essential for page speed. Trying not to use image tags as much as you can. At all. Try not to use image tags. Try and export everything as a background, and then they don't get picked up and you don't get penalised for not having the right width and height tags and all that type of stuff. I'm just going for background images. There's probably probably things that that's going to affect, like you're not going to have any alt tags on your images and stuff like that, and Google's essentially not going to read that data, which is probably a bad thing. But for performance, and this is what we're trying to do, the scores go up. So I don't know whether SEO readability goes down, but scores go up. But I don't think it'll matter too much that the odd bit of alt text isn't on an image, because obviously you can't get it on an image. But if the image isn't there, then the alt text probably don't need to be there. So I don't know in terms of SEO best practice, background images, whether they're good or bad, but in terms of performance, they're good. And this is essentially converting the .jpeg, basically everything after the dot, and inserting in the WebP. So my app by default is looking for the WebP image, and this one must have been generated and the other ones were not generated. They aren't being generated, so that's a bit of a pain in the ass for me now. And I'm just going to see if I can run the index. That sometimes runs them. I don't know whether my I don't know whether my system's running out of juice or something. I've never had this problem before. I've used that Aero extension for ages. But ideally, Aero works. It's free, by the way. Generates you WebP images, and then Bob's your uncle. You get the images. So what I'm gonna, but another way to do it would be to try and give them a kick would be to delete the cache folder and get it to regenerate. I'm gonna do that, and then if I refresh here, same. Is it just the same? No, nothing's showing now because there is no WebP. There is no WebP images unless it's generating them for me. I might check my Aero settings in a minute. I'll log into the admin. I'll get that open just in case I get any breaks where I'm waiting for something to compile or something. But you get the gist. I'm getting product data where it's available from the API, and I'm showing a nice grid of products there based on what I'm asking for in WordPress. So this is really configurable. If I want to move this block to under here and all that, I can move it around, and it's still going to go to Magento, get the information, and come back, and it does it pretty quickly as well, which is great. So right, I've got my reusable product components in here, so I'm getting price as well. Look, so I'm going and getting the symbol from the API, and I'm getting the price, and I'm sort of I'm just doing a query because this is the information that comes back from the API is like the word is GBP rather than the pound sign. So I'm saying where I'm getting GBP. Look, so in my price here, see it brings back this information. You can see if you can see it, and then final price, the regular price. So you're able to do like your sale calculations and all that. So it's really highly configurable. Yeah. So I'm bringing back the products there. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the next block in, which is just a single product. So I wanted to test it going to the API, the same endpoint, to just bring back a single product. So in order for that one to work, I need to just bring it through to here. So I'm going to say import product from components / product. Yep, there we go. So obviously same issue with the images, unfortunately, but this is information that I've put in here. Look, so I've gone with a title called like this weekly showcase, whatever, and bringing back one product, and then that product is now showing in its own little spot. All this layout's done in product. Look, with Tailwind, and it's there. And I've got some reusable blocks in there where I'm passing the price and the currency, I'm passing the image. So I'm using these blocks over and over again, which is the great thing about working this way. One of the great things is that all these components are reusable. This is where I'm going to get one product, look, instead of a bunch of products, but I'm going to the same GraphQL API endpoint and one size fits all really with regards to that, and I'm able to bring back product information. So we can see the page sort of building now. I've got a few viewers now, which is cool, so hello to everyone. Obviously I'll try and monitor the chat. There's nothing really coming in. In the chat though, there's the GitHub repo for where to start with this. And yeah, look, next one. We'll crack on. We'll get on to the next one. So the next block was, if we have a look at what's going through the API, I can't remember. I'll tell you what, I'll just have a quick look at WordPress. So we have product, now a text block. So text block would be coming from a file called text_block, which is text block, and that script gets rid of the underscore for me, if I remember rightly. I just want to double check it. Yeah, so I'm importing text block from there, and then text block. So the text block should now populate. There we go. So I just copied it off the Adidas website, some boilerplate text. So here we go. Obviously, I am aware I've got no header and footer at the minute, and I'm going to come on to that, I promise. But let's get through these components, and then I'll come on to the header and footer. And now also, I'm just going to throw these in now, and then move on to that. Got an image grid, and I add a single image as well. So, because basically I wanted to stress test it, I wanted to put lots of content on the page, I wanted to put some big images on the page, and see how it fared basically. So we've got single image and image grid coming through here, and we should get all of the content from the middle of the page basically. Yeah, nice one. That still hasn't generated, has it? I haven't even generated my new cache folder. Wonder if I have to go to actual Magento for that. Just 1 second, because this is, it's not actually there, is it? Probably. Right, and let's see if it regenerates for like. Let's get these images going. Right, so it's regenerating the images now, slowly but surely. See, it isn't bringing through the WebP, but it's regenerating them anyway. I'm wondering if it's doing the WebP and then there's something wrong with the template code. Anyway, I'll go back to my home page. There we go, some of the images are coming through. So it is generating some of the WebP. Magic. I bet I have to go to them pages for it to actually generate, I just thought. Anyway, it gives you an idea, I'll come back to that. So all of my blocks are now here. I've got a bunch of images. This is coming from WordPress as a WebP. And I've wrote another, because I'm using some of the WordPress, you guessed it there, Smush. So this Smush plugin does a similar thing to what Euro does on Magento. So you get a pro version, but there's a free version. Now I think the free version does this, but the pro version definitely does this. In the WordPress, it basically creates another WebP within the images folder, but within a smushed WebP folder. So all I've done is to be able to go to WordPress and actually get the WebP version of the image. I've just rewrote the string that comes through. So say a single image. This is coming from WordPress. Look, I've just rewrote the string replacing uploads with smush and just added .webp on the end, because all it does is it doesn't replace the JPEG file extension, it adds .webp at the end, and then the WebP one comes through, and they're just much better for page speed. Any image you put on a page, you've got to use WebP if your goal is performance. So yeah, so that's everything basically in terms of the page builder. Same with these, by the way. These are just images I got from another site, just to show a grid of images as well, showing as background images. All of these are background images, and yeah, the content of the page is done. Right, so as I said, I'm aware I've got no header. Now there's a reason why I've got no header, and that's because there's a decision to be made, right, at this point, I think, when you're using something like this. Now, what you can do is, I can include, so I've written a header, it's here, right? I can include a header in my app. I can pop it at the top here, and I can have my header in this app. But that means that if I build a header with categories, everything, if I go to here, essentially serving a different header. So I either rebuild this header traditionally with just CSS to match it, or I get rid of the global header and I use my Vue.js version of the header. Now I opted for the second one, in that I wanted to see if I could produce a global header which goes across every page built in Vue and still show by default the Magento pages like these ones. And the answer is yeah, I can do it, and it's quite simple. And the benefits are, you get to code one header, but as I say, you do get some conflicts if you're not changing these pages, if you're not optimizing these pages, but it's ready for when you do. Like at some point as you're going through your build, you might think, do you know what, I'm going to rip out this Magento page and I'm going to use GraphQL to get a list, and I'm going to reproduce the product pages within Magento to be better, right? And take the time to do that. But you don't want to have to do that. So like I said, the concept of this is, I'm just at the minute doing CMS pages, so I'm just getting so if I go to About Us as well, I think that's got some content on it. Yeah, so I'm going to the About Us page and I'm just getting the page build. I'm just putting the page builder on these pages via the same slug, I think, About Us. But anyway, I'm going to put the header. I'm going to mount the header as a Vue.js header globally, just so I show you how to do it as well. So how do we do it? Right, well, it all starts in our layout. So in our layout, and this will do it just for the time being, just for the CMS pages. Right. Yeah. Okay, so as I've shown you earlier, I'm removing the root here. I'm just going to paste this in. Right. And now I'm going to add another container under the root, so right at the top of the page, so where the header should be. And that header is going to look, and this is going to look for my block. It's going to add a header wrapper, and it's going to look for a header PHTML. Now guess what you're going to find in the header PHTML. I'm going to remove this. Yeah, that's right. You're going to find another mounting point, or you should find another mounting point for a different Vue.js component, i.e. the header component. So I've got one I made earlier, which I'm going to take you through now, because there's some other data in it which is interesting, and there's reasons why I've structured it the way I've structured it, which I'd like to talk about. So let's just paste this in now. There's quite a bit going on in here. So what am I getting? Right, I'm going to my block here, what I wrote separately, to get categories, to get the logo data, to get the meta title, to get the page identifier, which I'm already using in the app. But all those other things I'm using in here to then get the logo for the header from Magento, and I'm passing it through data attributes to my header. Now I could probably go, well I know I can definitely go and I can get all the categories from GraphQL API. However, I made the decision that it would be faster and more sort of economical on the site for me, because how often the categories change, to get them from Magento and pass them as a JSON object for me to pick up. Like if categories, you know, I only want to go to the API to get information that potentially is changing every few minutes or every hour, like product data can and stock data. Small static information, you can make the decision at this point to go get it from Magento, and all you have to do is write it into your block. Or you could even use Magento default blocks if you know you can, like. But the reason, obviously, there's a Magento default block where I can go get the logo, but that block doesn't contain the category information as well. And I wanted it all in the same file, so I thought, well, I'll write myself a way to do that, and that's basically this concept here. And I'm only getting, for the purposes of this, the top level categories, by the way, as well. I'm not getting all the drop down and everything, because I like to also, in terms of whether I'm doing a Vue app or just building a traditional Magento, I like to make sure that I'm going to Magento for static information where possible, and looping through the products, looping through the categories. When you look at Magento Profiler, it takes quite a long time, relatively, you know, like a few hundred milliseconds, which if you're just going to get a static block, and that becomes your mega menu, I think I might have talked about this before, it's a hell of a lot quicker. So for the manual job of putting in your categories into a mega menu, which don't change that often, the gains in terms of site speed are a lot. You're quite worth doing. So this is going to now pass into a header. Now how do we split out our Vue app to take in information from the header and information from our body? Well, that's quite simple as well. So I need to find my main.js. This is the entry point for my app, and I'm creating a Vue app, and then I'm grabbing basically one component, and then that one component has nested components in it. But I'm basically grabbing one component, which is app at the minute. I need to go grab my header as well as a separate component. And it is in, hang on, where is it? It's in components, it's in global, and it's in, and by the way, you can do the same with your footer, etc. I'm going to get the header component, and then I'm going to split out this app, or I'm going to split out the sort of entry point, and you do this like so. So it's dead simple. I've got one app being created for app, and all I need is another app to be created for my header. So I'm passing in the component, and then I'm mounting. That. And then I'm mounting that too, and I need to just remind myself this here. Where is it? Header app. Right. The other thing that this is doing while I'm here is it's resetting the title tag, because as you can see, look, when I remove everything from Magento, I also remove the title tag. So I'm putting it back using page meta title, which I'm again just grabbing from a CMS block. Look. Page meta title there. So I'm just grabbing that from this current CMS page, which is pretty simple to do. Yeah, and I'm just telling it to mount there. Save this. There we go. Voila. So as I say, now I can go to women's. Now, as you can see, different header like I explained, but the links are working. I can go backward and forward. Some sites have a different header on their own page. Not very good ones, but some do. But, you know, it's one of those things. You can make the decision whether you replicate this, and obviously I've gone for a real simple one here. I'm going to get the default image, logo, whatever you upload. I'm getting the default categories, and I'm going to, probably on the next live stream, I'm going to build a full text search using GraphQL API as well. So I'm going to build this in this this is just a placeholder at the minute. But you know, spoiler alert, there's a search here, which I'm going to go into and I'm going to build out, go into the GraphQL API when it types and stuff, which is easier than you think in this type of technology. I've got my navigation here. So this navigation actually works right down onto mobile as well. There's a nice little burger menu and everything. It's all up and running and ready to go, but it's a nice tidy little header. So obviously you can, same concept with the footer. You would mount another app for the footer, and that way you can use them globally. Well, how do you use it globally? So we'll pretty much finish off on how to use this globally. So, which is a dead simple thing, you've probably already guessed. But you just basically change where you get it from in here. So what you'd need, anything global that you want to affect is done via a default layout. So you're basically saying, I want to do this on every page. So you've got to add it via the default, but what that also means is you're going to have to add your scripts here as well. Yeah, so because you're going to need this to mount your header app on all the other pages. So you put your scripts in, and then what I've done is I've removed, because on the other pages I was removing everything. Now I don't want to do that on all my other pages. So all my CMS pages, I'm moving everything and I'm saying this is my new page. Enjoy. On this one, I'm saying I only want to replace the header at this point, and I'm gonna piecemeal, you know, my build. I'm gonna build maybe product page next, so I'm gonna go and then I'd get the layout for the product page, and each time I'm gonna be sort of refactoring this code and working out where's best to actually put things. It's a work in progress, this, and then I'm gonna simply get rid of the panel, the wrapper, and the nav. And I'm going to put my block, which I'm going to call view header, which I've called in the other one. I'm going to put this into another page. There we go. So it's there. So as you can see, it's slightly different. Look, this is slightly, that's not too bad, because I've written some specific CSS to get around this, by the way. So I'll just quickly show you this. So I've written some CSS here to reset a lot of the stuff on the nav that Magento's expecting from Luma theme, to kind of get it consistent across both. Look, I mean the spacing's not quite right yet, but you can see that that's on the way back, but compared to the search, not too good. It's gone smaller and it's not quite right. But that's because I'm getting a confliction between my Luma theme styles and the styles that I'm building into my component. But the good thing is, well, there's always positives, is that I can actually see this in my view tools. Look, so I can like interact. I could do it here. Let's have a look. Is there a header in here somewhere? Gotta refresh it. So it's picking it up. Look, that's not quite working, but you can see it in your view tools normally. And I think if I just jump back into, I might have to refresh things on the page. I think I might have to do a hard refresh. Let's have a look. Yeah, view tools can be a bit sticky, but I did get it working. So if you refresh it and close it, yeah, it's kind of crashed. Look, it's doing this loady thing. Let's see if I can refresh it. Let me just show you what I see in my view. See if that header comes through. Yeah, it's still only showing me app in it, but it should show me both. I should be able to. Yeah, well, I can switch between both. See, so I can switch between the header now, and I can work in the header. So I've got like my category object. This is all coming through from Magento, and then so what I'm doing with the categories is I am passing them as attributes through from the header, where I'm picking it up. I'm picking up the categories from here. Look, as a JSON. I'm passing them into an object or an array, and then I'm passing them into my navigation there as a computed function. So I'm using all the power and flexibility of Vue computed functions to get this information and pass it to, as I say, my navigation. So yeah, you're getting the best of both worlds here, to be honest. Once you get into it, it seems like a bit of a mammoth task, but then once you get into it, it really isn't, to be fair. It's Tell you what, if I just go to this, I wonder if I can just get that to generate. Yeah, once that generates, come back to my home page. It's working. Ah, there you go. Little hack. So if you go to the product, because these are all linking through to products, once it's generated the image, generates the web page. Yeah, they're all working now. That's all working. Magic. That's really great. So yeah, so that's like an overview, a starting point. Now I'm going to be working on this. I'm gonna work on this on my live streams, piece by piece. As I say, search might be next, but I might find something else. I could, using this, you could even rebuild the checkout, couldn't you? You could rebuild the checkout in Vue, and completely do away with all that two-step nonsense. And I'm being a bit harsh. I like the Magento checkout, but you could do away with it. But essentially, if I wanted to add a footer, I'd just mount another footer app, so I can use a footer globally, and I can build that in Vue if I want as well. So yeah, that's about it for today. I just wanted to take it easy, slow one, and just walk you through this in terms of like a bit of a sort of follow along. And obviously you can grab this afterwards, but there is another video on my channel where I show you how I've built the module boilerplate, and then this is obviously just an advancement of my customizations on top of that as an idea of how you can customize it. But you can customize it in any way, and I'd like to, I'd love it if people could fork it, the original one, and build their integrations. You don't have to use WordPress as your CMS. It's a pretty good version, but you don't have to use it. Yeah, it's looking promising, this. I really like it. And yeah, in terms of page speed, now I never do this on a live stream, do I? Just have a quick look to finish off. But when I do this on a live stream, because my computer's groaning, it never works. It's not bad. But what I want to say is the key things are these here. The first paintfall is down to the fact that I ain't got any caching on my Nginx settings, and I'm running it locally, and I'm live streaming, which I've found out many a time. But look at the scores you're getting for everything else. It's mega. It's just brilliant. Best practice is up at 92 as well, so you're doing the right thing. I've got clearing storage. I'm not even cheating, and it is cheating. If you don't clear storage and then you screenshot it and send it to a client, that's cheating. Right, and so this is doing the mobile. And by the way, I'm not in production mode. I've not minified all my code yet. See what we get on mobile. But I'm not looking at the overall score. I'm looking at the blocking time. Yeah, this is best practices are up there. But as I say, if I get this all, turn on the caches, if I minify my code, this shoots up into the high 90s. I can be honest. You can give it a go yourself. But yeah, what have I got here? Yeah, and you got to do it in incognito mode. You've got to do it in incognito mode because it's picking up my Chrome extension for my live reload and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's telling me I've made a mistake there. But on desktop, it gives you a good idea of what we're looking at. Cumulative layout shift, which is a nightmare in the Magento page builder. Normally a 0, a big fat 0. So thanks for watching. Thanks for bearing with, and I hope this is interesting to people. If it is, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to continue to pile this content in, and no doubt I will see you in the next one.